Hello, my name is Mark, and today we're going to be going over the 20 math skills for the IBEW Aptitude Test, Algebra and Functions, and GAN-style math. Depending on your local, you need to identify which test you are taking, either the Algebra and Functions with the reading comprehension or the GAN Aptitude. Anyway, all this information that I am teaching is free, and all I ask for you to do is to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are not subscribed, and when you are done, when you have passed the test, and you have passed the interview, and you are waiting for a spot for the call to become an electrician, check out my gaming stuff. Did the hotel owner do this? Oh! Anyway, guys, let's begin. The table of contents. Take a screenshot of what I will be covering. I will be covering 20 skills, 20 math skills, and I will also be giving you some bonus tips. While I'm progressing through the slides, you'll notice that each skill compounds. I will be teaching GAN basic math skills as well as algebra foundations, and lastly, near the end of the slides, we'll see algebra and functions and test style thinking. Okay, tip number 1, multiplying and dividing fractions. You see here that we have 1/2 times 3/4. In this case, this is super easy. Multiplying and dividing fractions is very straightforward. There is an extra step for dividing fractions, and we'll go over that. So for this, it's just 1/2 times 3/4. All we have to do is multiply across with multiplication, with multiplying with fractions. This will equal what is 1 times 3? That's 3. What is 2 times 4? That's 8. Easy. We got the answer for this. Now, let's say that we have, I'm going to do another one, 1/2 times, or maybe let's try 2/4 times 2/4. Okay. What does that equal? What is 2 times 2? That's 4. What is 4 times 4? That's 16. Okay. Now we're not done here. We have to reduce this fraction. Okay. So we just have to figure out what goes into both the numerator and the denominator. For this case, in this case, 4 goes into 4 and 16. Divide by 4 equals 1/4, right? Because 16 divided by 4 is 4. There you go. For dividing fractions, it's simple too as well. We just have to do one step. And let's do 1/2 divided by 3/4. Okay, same setup. But what we must do is we must keep the first term. We must change the second term, and we need to flip it. Okay, the acronym is at the bottom here, KCF, keep, change, flip. But you don't need to know all that. All you need to know is to flip this. That's it. That's all you need to know. So we could rewrite this whole thing to 1/2 times, times 4/3 equals, what is 1 times 4? And then after we flip the second term that we're dividing by, we just multiply across. That's it. 4 over, what is 2 times 3? That is 6. And are we done here? No, we're not. We need to simplify. What can go inside both these numbers? And that's 2. 2 can go into both these numbers. Divide by 2. Divide by 2. This equals 4 divided by 2 is 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. And this is our answer, 2/3. Okay? That's all you need to know for division. is just flip the second term. You see something like this on the test, 3/4 divide by 5/9. Just think of it like this, 3/4 times 9/5. That's it. And then just multiply across. That's all you need to know. Okay. And what I have here in this box is a challenge question. And what I want you to do is put the answer in the comments and number them, because there is a challenge question for each tip. So here we go. I want you to solve this. 15/19 times 57/58. What does that equal? And then 15/19 divided by 57/58. What does that equal? Let me know in the comments below. All right, perfect. Now let's go on to the next tip. Tip number 2, adding and subtracting fractions. Solve 1/8 plus 1/8 equals 1/5 plus 1/2 equals, and 3/4 minus 1/2 equals. Now, the thing about adding and subtracting fractions is, I believe, in my opinion, it's a little bit more difficult than multiplying and dividing fractions, because there's one rule that is crucial to solving this problem. And that is the denominators need to be the same, okay? This one could add together, straightforward, okay? 1/8 plus 1/8 equals, well, what is 1 plus 1? That is just 2. And then 8 plus 8, 16. But that's wrong, okay? The thing about adding and subtracting is the denominators stay the same. So this equals, actually, let me erase it, okay? You would think you would do that, right? But it's the numerators that get added or subtracted, but only if the denominators are the same. Look at the denominators. Are they the same? Yes? Okay, good. So we could just do this, okay? Now, what is 1 plus 1? 1 plus 1 is 2. And we're not done yet, because the thing is, the number 2 could go inside both the 2 and the 8, further simplifying our fraction, right? This stuff right now, I'm writing everything out, but by the time you get these skills, you master these skills, you'll already know to simplify. You don't need to write this out right here. I only do that for you, so we could get our thought process out. I want to show you what's happening. That's my goal. Okay? 2 divided by 2, that is 1. 8 divided by 2, that is 4. So our answer is 1/4. Okay? So now we have a problem with increased difficulty because the denominators are not the same, right? We have the 5 and we have the 2. Now, what we have to do to get the denominators to match is find the common denominator. And the common denominator, of which both numbers could go into, is 10. Now, how can we get the numerators to match the denominators? And that's to multiply the same number we multiplied at the bottom. Now, let me demonstrate. I know that was a lot of words. So let's go 1/5 plus 1/2, right? Now I want to change the 5 into a 10. So I multiply the 5 by 2, and I'm just going to work with the 1/5. So times by 2 equaling 10. And we're not done there. What I do at the bottom, I must also do at the top. So I'm going to multiply this also by 2. And then we get 2/10. Now let's work with the 1/2. 1/2, and I'm going to use a different color. 1/2, how can we get to 10? We multiply this to 5 by 5. that equals 10. And then we must do the same to the numerator. And then we get 5 over 10. Now we can add these fractions. So let's go ahead and do it right here. I'm going to change the color. We go 2/10 plus, and then we have 5/10. What does that equal? We just add across right here. 2 plus 5 is 7. And then the denominator stays the same with adding and subtracting fractions. And this is our answer, 7/10. Perfect. Okay? The denominators, they must be the same. We must find a common denominator. That's how we change the denominators and make them match. And then we just add across. That's it. Okay, next question. And then this answer was 7/10. Okay, this one is 3/4 minus 1/2. Again, what can we do to the denominators to make them match? And in this case, we only need to change the denominator for this term, this 1/2, because we have a 4 here already, okay? And for this one, right, we can go 3/4, oh no, we can go 1/2, and then we can multiply this by 2, and then we multiply the top by 2, and then we get 2/4, right? Then I could write this all out, 3/4 minus 2/4. What does that equal? And are our caveats met, which are the denominators being the same? Yes. So we're good to go. 3 minus 2 is 1. And the answer is 1/4. Okay, perfect. Our pro tip here is the denominators must be the same to perform addition and subtraction with fractions. And that was the key. I have this gnat that's just super annoying. And that's the key to solving problems with adding and subtracting fractions. And again, here is our challenge question. Solve 1/3 plus 5/9. What does that equal? 3/4 minus 1/3. And what does that equal? Make sure to comment and number them properly below. Okay, tip number 3, finding a percentage of a number. Solve the following. Okay. When I was little, my dad taught me a little thing about 10%, right? All you have to do for 10%, for example, let's say an Xbox costs $300, right? And it's 10% off. 10%, to get 10%, all we have to do is move this decimal, right? And now it's $30 is 10%. And when you say 10% off, we go 300 minus 30, right? And then we get 270. And that's how much the Xbox is if it is 10% off, or when it is 10% off. Okay? That's the little trick that my dad taught me. But let's just break it down so you could understand what's happening. Okay? One could say, okay, 10% of 100, that is just 10. Okay, but how is it 10? Right? Because what does 10% mean? 10% means 10 over 100. That's all that means. Okay? And then if we want to go further, right? What is 100 divided, or 10 divided by 100? We get 10, 100, right? And then we put our decimal point right here, and we put it up there. And then this 100 can't just go into the 1. This 100 can't go into the 0, but the 100 could go into 100 after we add this 0 right here. This is basic mathematics, guys. Okay. And then 100, I'm going to put the 1 right here because this is 0 and 0. 1 times 100. And then there we go. We get 0.1. And that's what this equals, 0.1. And then let's take it a step further. We go 0.1 times 100, right? One could just argue and say, well, that's super easy, 10. But what's really happening? What's happening is this, 100 times 0.10, right? We could have wrote it the easy way, but just for you to understand, it's 0, 0, 0, and then add this 0 here. What is 1 times 0? 0. What is 1 times 0 again? 0. What is 1 times 1? 1. Let's add these two together. 0, 0, 0, and then 1. Move the decimal spot 2 times, and we go 2 times again, and then we get 10. 10.00, or just 10. And that's how you get 10% of 100, the long way. Okay? This is what's happening. But all I want you to get, to grasp, is 10%. Okay? Once you find 10%, you could find mostly everything by just using scratch paper. You don't need a calculator. So 10% of 100, again, 100, right? 0.00. Move the decimal spot. Now we get 10. That is 10% of 100. Now let's do 25% of 80, okay? This one may be a little bit more difficult or a little bit difficult, but not really, because we know 10%, right? What is 10% of, let me rewrite that, of 80? Well, let's just move the decimal, right? 10% of 80 is 8, right? Now 20% of 80, right? 20% of 80 is just 8 plus 8, right? Because 10% is 8, and then 20% just doubles, and we get 16, right? Now it wants 25%. Well, what's 5% of 80? What is 5% of 80? So all we have to do is get this 8 and divide that by 2, right? Get the 8 divided by 2, and we get 4. So then we get 8 plus 4, and that equals 20. So 25% of 80 is 20. My math is all over the place. I hope you were able to follow that, okay? All I'm doing is breaking down the fractions, or all I'm doing is using 10%. That's really it. And then this one, 37%, okay? What is 10% of 48? 10% of 48, all right? 10% of 48 is just move the decimal spot. Now 10% of 48 equals, I was going to put a dollar sign, 4.8, right? Now, what is 30% of 48? So that's just 10% 3 times. So 4.8, and I'm going to multiply this by 3. That's 4, 2, 12, 14, okay? And then move the decimal spot moves 1 time. We move that 1 time, and it's 14.4 equaling 30%, okay? Now, what's left is 7% because we found 30%, Now what's left is 7%. So let's find the 5%. Okay? And the 5% is just half of the 10%. So 4.8, divide that by 2, we could mentally do this, right? We could just mentally do that. And this equals 2.4. Okay? Now what's left is the 1% or 2%. And how do we find 1% of 48? Well, we already have 10%. So all we need to do for 1% is move the decimal one more time. So 1% of 48 equals 0.48. So this one, let me just write this in different colors. This is our 5%. This is our 1%. And this is our 30%. Okay? Now let's just add all that together. Okay? So we get 14.4% and 2.4%. And remember, when you're adding decimals, the decimal point has to line up. Okay? And then 0.48% plus another 0.48%. Now we add that all together. All right. So we have 16, 1, 4, 8, 12, 16 plus 1, 7, 1. We have, let's put our decimal point right here. 1 plus 4 is 5 plus 2 is 7. And then 1 right here. So our answer is 17.76. Okay. So the pro tip here is of means multiply. Okay. Move the decimal 2 places to the left, then multiply. Move the decimal 2 places left, then multiply, right? So 10%. So we just have to move it 2 places because 10% is 10 over 100. Okay. Break harder percentages into easier pieces, just like I did. First, I get 10%. And then I multiply by whatever to get, let's say, for example, 30%. I multiply 10% by 3. And to go further, we can find 5% and we could find 1%. Okay? Break harder percentages into easier pieces. That's it. Okay, here's the challenge question. This is a word problem. You go to your bank and the bank teller says you can only access 89% of your $37,863.08 balance. Out of pure appreciation for free math help, you tip Mark 1/4 of $897. How much money do you have left? Put your answers in the comments and make sure you properly number them. Okay, next tip. Tip number 4, converting fractions, decimals, and percentages. Okay, this one I'm not really going to solve because these ones I want you to know and memorize. Okay, these ones will come up all the time. 1/2 equals 0.5. 0.5 equals 50%. 1/4 equals 0.25. 0.25 equals 25%. 3/4 equals 0.75, equaling 75%. The pro tip here is fraction to decimal is top divided by bottom. Okay, let me demonstrate that. Okay, this is what's happening. So we have the top divided by the bottom, and it looks weird like this, right? This one, we're going to perform an operation on this one. Okay. 2, how many times can 2 go into 1? Well, it can't. So I'm going to put a decimal point here and then put a 0 here and then put this decimal point up there because what this decimal does is it moves and stays the same in the fraction. Okay. I'm going to put a 0 right here. Okay. Now with this 0 added, right? Because you add a 0 because you need to go further. How many times can 2 go into 10? And that is 5 times. Okay? And then 10 minus, and then you get 0, then you're good to go. So 0.5, right? Now, we got that right here. I have demonstrated how to get 1/2 and change that into a decimal. And now to get 50%, all you have to do right here, decimal to percentage, is multiply by 100. So 0.5 times 100 equals 50.0. Now, I get it. I know this. But what's really happening, right? This is what's happening. 100, and then you have your 0.5, right? And then you go 0. What is 5 times 0? 0. 5 times 0 again? 0. 5 times 1? 5. Move this decimal. Move this decimal. And now you get 50.0 or 50% in this case. Okay? Let me just write that out for you guys. All right. We are tracking. Are we tracking? I hope we're tracking. That's how you convert fractions, decimals, and percentages. Tip number 4. Okay. And let's go ahead and check out the challenge problem. Solve 33 over 57. I want to know the decimal and I want to know the percentage. Okay? In the comments below. All right. Order of operations. Now we are moving on to some algebra. Solve these problems here. And oopsies, I need to make this a problem by putting, a equal sign. 3 plus 4 times 2 equals question mark. And before I even start this, right, we need to go over PEMDAS. Okay? PEMDAS stands for please excuse my dear audience. You guys should subscribe to Markyfbaby. I'm just kidding. Okay, PEMDAS stands for please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. I'm sure you've heard that before or a variation of that. And PEMDAS just means parentheses, right? Parentheses, right? Parentheses, exponents. And then also with exponents are square roots. Then you got multiplication, division, and you have addition. Oops. That looks like a B. But I'm not going to fix it. It's addition. And then subtraction. All right. So that's all that means. So when you get a problem and you're looking at it, you ask yourself, does it have parentheses? No? Well, then skip to the next one. Does it have exponents? No. Or square roots? No. Okay, we'll skip to the next one. Does it have multiplication? Okay, yes. In our case, let's use this as the example. In our case, yes, it does. So we have to perform this operation first. Okay? Does it have division? No. Does it have addition and subtraction? Yes, it does. Then we perform that second. So let me demonstrate, okay? So 3 plus 4 times 2. And this equals, well, what is 4 times 8? Because this is multiplication, we have to work with this part of the problem first. And that's 8. Then carry that 3 back down. And then what's 3 plus 8? That is 11, okay? Do not make the mistake by going, oh, what is 3 plus 4? Well, that is 7. What is 7 times 2? That equals 14. No, incorrect, wrong. Come on. You've been watching too much Markyfbaby gaming. You need to focus on the algebra. All right. Let's go. Next question on here. So let's see. We have 3 plus 4 in parentheses times 2. Well, let's go look at our PEMDAS here. And then we see here that we have a parentheses. We have to solve what's going on in the parentheses first. We don't multiply first. That's what we did last time. But in this case, we have a parentheses. So what is 3 plus 4? That's 7. Okay. And what I like to do is I like to carry this parentheses as I continue the problem. That's just a me thing. Okay. It makes it look neat and it makes me track the parentheses. And there's nothing to do here anymore. So it's just 7 times 2, and that equals 14. Now this equals 14. Okay. So what did this equal? 4 times 2 is 8. 8 plus 3 is 11. And this one was 14. All right, let's go on to the next one. And the next one is 6 plus 4 times 8. Now, what we have to do here is distribute this 7. But before we distribute the 7, we have to figure out what's going on in the parentheses. And what we can do here is do 6 plus 10, or 6 plus 4. I got ahead of myself there. 6 plus 4, which equals 10. So I'm going to rewrite it, 7, and then 10 times 8. And then we go, what is 7 times 10? Because this right here, all this means when this is attached to the parentheses is 7 times 10. That's all that's happening. So 70, because 7 times 10 is 70, times 8. What does that equal? Well, what is 7 times 8? It's 56. Carry that 0, and it's 560. Okay, perfect. Now we have kind of a monster next, and I will need all the room that I could get. So I'm going to erase everything. Hopefully you have memorized PEMDAS. So we have 8 plus 32 times 12 minus 7 minus 24 divided by 6 plus 16. And did this fix? Oh, it did. Nice. It fixed it. I put a line there thinking it didn't, but I guess it automatically did it. Anyway, well, what do we do first? PEMDAS, right? P, parentheses. I see the parentheses over here. So I'm going to write everything down slowly. 8 plus 32 times 12 minus 7 minus 24 divided by 6 plus square root 16. Okay, so I'm going to do something with these parentheses first. And I'm going to go 8 plus 32 times, this is 12 minus 7 is 5, minus 24 divided by 6 plus, and I'm just going to solve the square root really quick, okay? Because we can do that. There's nothing attached to it that will mess up the problem. We could just do it, okay? And that's the next operation anyway, exponents and square roots. So 16, the square root of 16, that's 4, okay? And then we check out what we could do next. And what I do see is we have multiplication and we have division. And in this case, we have to be careful because we have a negative here and we need to carry that negative, okay? And what I mean by carry that negative is just what we do, the operation is negative 24 divided by 6. You could do 24 divided by 6, but make sure to put back that negative, okay? So let's go ahead and perform these operations. So I have 8 plus, what is 32 times 5? Well, let me just do that right here because I don't know that from the top of my head. And I go 0, 1, 160, and then I get 160 minus, and then I get, what is 24 divided by 6? Negative 24 divided by 6. Well, if you know your multiplication and times tables, you know that it's negative 4. okay, or 4. 24 divided by 6 is 4, but in our case, it's negative 4. And then we go plus 4, okay? Then we could just do addition and subtraction. Well, here, negative 4 plus 4, we could just eliminate that, cross that out right there. And then what is 8 plus 160? That's 168. And perfect. We have our equation, or we have the solution. And the thing is, I think I messed this problem up because what I meant to put here, and I didn't do it, was make this the 3 power of 2, 3 squared, and I would have got a lower number. But in this case, yeah, I forgot to do that. So maybe check my work. I might have got this one wrong. Let's go ahead and check out the challenge problem. And here you go. See, look, this line here I made because the square root doesn't go all the way to the top, or all the way through. So go ahead and do this problem and put the right answer or your answer in the comments below. Okay. Next, tip number 6, negative number rules. Solve negative 3 plus 7, negative 3 minus 7 equals negative 3 plus negative 7 equals. And I don't know if this is right or wrong, but the way I say it could be wrong, which I go minus 3 and minus 7, and I use those interchangeably, okay? But it really doesn't matter, okay? You could correct me all you want, but it really does not matter, okay? Negative 3 minus 7 or negative 3 negative 7. It makes sense if you say negative 3 minus 7, though. So let's just go ahead and solve these. And the only thing I really want you to get from this is that when you multiply your negative numbers, right? Let's say you have negative 3 times negative 7. That equals a positive number, okay? And I do have that in the pro tips. A negative, let me just write it out for you guys too. This is for multiplication. A negative times a negative equals a positive, okay? A positive times a positive, that equals a positive. And then a negative, anything with a negative multiplied by a negative will always be negative, okay? Whichever way you want to put it, it's always going to be a negative, okay? Remember these. So let's just solve these simple problems. So negative 3 plus 7, well, that equals 4, right? And the best way to look at it is like this, okay? You'll never have to do this, but this just will make sense to you, okay? I'll actually make this one 0. And then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, we'll have 8, 9, and 10 just for the heck of it. Well, if we have our 7 right here, right? And then we go minus 3, right? Minus 3 points is 1, 2, 3, right? And that equals, well, let's start here at 0 again. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4, right? So this is what's happening on the line, okay? And let's go ahead and check out this. Negative 3 minus 7. Well, I know the answer, and I'm sure you do too. Well, it's negative 10. But for people who need this, let's go check it out, okay? We have a negative 7. I'm going to put negative 7 over here this time. And then the negative numbers, whenever they increase in number value, the way we see them or perceive them, that means they're becoming more negative. So this one, I'm going to make negative 8, negative 9, negative 10, negative 11, negative 12, negative 13, negative 14, negative 15, negative 16, negative 17. Okay. And I'm going to make this negative 6, negative 5, negative 4, negative 3. Okay. So just to give you an idea, we start over here at -7. Okay? Well, actually, I'm so sorry. We have to start at, let me just erase this right there. Okay, perfect. We have to start, and that's good. I have this -3. We're going to start at -3, right? Well, we start at -3 and we minus 7, right? So we minus 7, we travel down 7. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This right here. So what's that? Well, we have -7 here, 8, 9, and then 10 right here, -10. So that's what's happening. Okay? And it just becomes at scale when we multiply and when we divide. All right? So that's just a breakdown of what is happening. Okay? And then -3 times -7, just get your times tables out. And remember, a negative times a negative, that equals a positive. So it's 21, right? Because 3 times 7 is 21. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and simplify this. Okay? Simplifying this, what do we do with this negative, right? What's happening with this negative? And this is kind of a harder topic that I'm introducing, but what I want you to grasp is this negative goes to this 5x, and this negative also goes to this -4x. So this positive number, it changes into a negative number. And this negative number changes into a positive number. And what I like to do is when I multiply or distribute equations like this, I get negative and I put a -1 there because that's all it means. Unless they put another number like a 2 or a 3 or a 4 or a 5. But if they just put a negative there, I know to multiply that negative in, and I'm going to multiply it by -1. So that's how I would rewrite this whole equation, or I would do in my head, right? Let me just erase this right here now. And then we have -5x minus 4, right? And I said I like to put a -1 right here, or just a 1 because we already have the negative. So all I'm going to do is get this -1 and distribute it to the 5x, and distribute this -1 to the -4. And what do we get here? What is -1 times a positive 5x? That is a -5x. What is the -1 times a -4? Well, that's a positive 4. Because again, a negative times a negative equals a positive. And this is our simplified equation. Okay? Remember the pro tips over here in the corner. That's not an equation, okay? That was just stuck in my head. They're like, it's not an equation. That's an expression, okay? An equation has an equal sign. These are equations. We solve the equations, okay? We simplify expressions. Okay, perfect. Tip number 7, understanding variables. Solve the following below when m equals 5. I know that you're used to seeing x and y, but I just like to change up all the variables because on the test, on any test, on most tests, they will use different letters to throw you off because you have practice with just x and y. But not with Markyfbaby, okay? So all we have to do here, right, 3m equals question mark, all we have to do is plug this variable in. That's all you need to do, right? So this case, 3, and I like to use the blue color, 3, and I like to put this in parentheses because m equals 5. Well, what is 3 times 5? Because this is all that means. That's 15. So 15. What is m plus 7 equals question mark? Well, we just substitute the m for 5. So 5 plus 7 equals 12. 12. Okay? M squared equals Well, 5 squared equals, and we should know this, okay? This is basic math. You need to know these. This is 25, okay? I don't know what they're called. I think they're called like perfect squares or something. But you have like 2 squared equals 4, 3 squared equals 9. Okay, you need to memorize these. And then 5 squared equals 25. 4 squared equals 16. Okay, 6 squared equals 36. And then when you do all these in reverse, which is the square root, this equals 6. Square root, this equals 4. Square root of 9, this equals 3. Square root of 25, this equals 5. Square root of 16, this equals 4. Okay, you need to know those. Pro tip here, a variable is just a number we do not know yet. Okay, and this right here is the variable. 3x means 3 multiplied by x, and I demonstrated that. X squared means x multiplied by x, right? Because 5 squared is 5 times 5 equaling 25. Okay, and to go a step further, 5 times 5 times 5, okay, that equals a number, a value. But this right here is 5 cubed. All right. And then you do 5 times 5 is 25. 25 times 5, that's 125. Okay. Perfect. For the, did I do the challenge question for the last question? For tip number 6? I don't think I did. So for tip number 6, guys, here is your equation. Solve this. Okay. Oops. And then for tip number 7, here is your equation. Solve the following below when x equals -3. 4x plus x squared. So what do? I don't know. Figure it out. Let me know in the comments below what the answer is. Tip number 8, expression versus equation. Okay. An expression is something we could simplify or evaluate. Okay, there's nothing we could do anymore. We get 3x plus 5, there's nothing we could do. There are no like terms, and there is no equal sign for us to solve. For example, solving for x. There's none of that. So this is our expression simplified, okay? Versus an equation. An equation, we have an equal sign, and now we could isolate the variable and solve for x. Let me show you how to do that, right? -5, -5. We must do that on both sides to cross this out. And then we get 3x equals, what is 20 minus 5? That is 15. Now, what else can I do to simplify to isolate the x? Well, I could divide by 3 on both sides, and we get, and then this crosses out, okay? And this really becomes 1 times x, because 3 over 3 is 1, and that equals 15 divided by 3 is 5. And then you just write it as x equals 5, okay? That's what's happening. So that's it. We sped run. I speed run that. Speeded run that. Okay? Speed ran. Is that how I would say it? Speed ran or sped run? That was a speed run. Okay? Pro tip, expression equals no equal sign. Equation equals has an equal sign. Expressions are simplified or evaluated, and equations are solved. And here is your challenge problem. First, solve the equation for x. Okay, solve the equation. What is the equation? Then plug that value into the expression and simplify. All right, I'll let you determine what is the equation and what is the expression. Let me know in the comments below. All right. Tip number 9, evaluating expressions. Evaluate the following expressions when x equals 0.
What?
So we have an x, and we could plug it in to our expressions here below. So let's just go ahead and do it. Let me just replace those x's with 4s. And then this one, I do an equal sign, right? When I write and solve, but there is no equal sign. we are simplifying, okay? I like to do this too sometimes, which is like my version of an arrow. So I'll do that. Or I'll do the equal sign, okay? It doesn't matter. Just letting you guys know that's how I write. So 9 times 4 is 36. And then we carry that 2. And then we get 36 plus 2 is 38. So 38 is the simplification of this expression. I don't know if I said that right. I don't know if that's even right. But that's just this simplified when x equals 4. Okay? Now let's go ahead to the next one and just write everything out. Squared plus 3 and then 4 minus 9. And let me just take everything out. So all I did here was replace the x's with the 4's. Now use PEMDAS. So what is 4 squared? 4 squared is 16. So let me just rewrite it. Okay, 16 plus, and then what's 3 times 4? That's 12 minus 9. And then 2 times 16, that is 32 plus 12 minus 9. What is 12 plus 42? Or 12 plus, going ahead of myself. 32 plus 12, that is 44. And then minus 9, that is 35. Okay? That's what's happening. We have reduced this expression to its simplest form when x equals 4. Okay? This is actually how to write it. Okay? This is how you would solve, right? The hierarchy of solving to getting the simplified term. All right. Pro tip, replace the variable first, then simplify using PEMDAS. All right. And here is your challenge question. Evaluate the following expression when a equals -3, b equals 8, and c equals -6. Just follow the pro tip and you will be fine and you will answer this correctly. Okay, tip number 10, combining like terms. Okay, simplify the following expressions. 3x plus 5x, okay, we could reduce that. And we can because 3x and 5x are the same. So we could just add it across and this will equal 8x. Okay, there's no multiplication in this. This is just addition. That's how you do it, okay? This is reduced to its lowest terms because the 6 cannot add with the 9x because it has an x with it. So what this looks like is 6 plus 9 times x. That's what this looks like, okay? And we can't reduce that. It just becomes 6 plus 9x. That's it, okay? And then we go on to the next, and I'm just going to write that for you guys. Okay, are there any terms here that are the same? Okay. Yes, there are terms that may look the same, right? But one of these 3 of these terms is not the same, and it's the one with the exponent, with the 2 as the exponent, or a squared x. Okay, this cannot be combined with the 4x and the 5x. The 4x and the 5x can be combined though. So the simplified expression is just 7x squared plus 9x plus 21. Okay? And then over here, I like these problems because what I like to do is this, and you're going to do this on the test too, is, okay, I'm going to find the term with the highest power, okay? It's this one right here. So I'm going to write 65x cubed, and there's nothing else with it, so I move on to the next term, 5x squared and 8x squared, and I'm just going to cross that out. And so I write 8x squared plus 5x squared, and this equals, sorry, there was a gnat, 8x squared plus 5x squared, this equals 13x squared. And I'm going to cross these out. And then the next is 8x and 7x, positive 8x plus 7x, that equals 15x. Cross those out. And lastly, we have a -4 minus 9. negative 4 minus 9. This equals negative 13. Okay, so our simplified expression becomes now 65x cubed, and then we're just rewriting all this. That's all we're doing. Okay, we cross those out. And then plus 13x squared plus 15x minus 13. That is this simplified. That's it. So the pro tip here is same variable, same exponent equals like terms. Combine the x's with x's, combine numbers with numbers. And then x squareds with x squareds and x cubed with x cubes and so on and so forth. Okay, let's go look at the challenge problem. And it says here, simplify the following expression. 6x cubed plus, I'm not going to read all that, but combine like terms. There's an extra step that you're going to have to do here to do that. But you'll figure it out because you're smart. Okay. Tip number 11, distributing, which I have covered in the previous slides briefly, but now we can go over it in depth. So simplify the following expressions, and I'm going to drink some water. We have been recording for a whole hour. Okay. Simplify the following expressions. Okay. So all we're doing here, 3 and then x plus 4 in parentheses, all we're doing here is getting the 3, which is a coefficient. And we're going to multiply this by the x and then multiply this by the 4. That's all we're doing. So this becomes 3 times x, right? Plus 4 times 3. And then we use PEMDAS, 3x plus 12, right? But you could just skip that step, and then this becomes 3x plus 12. That's it, because it's 3x, 3 times x is 3x, and then 3 times 4 is 12. And this is what's happening, okay? Then you could like use PEMDAS at this step, but don't do that, okay? That's just what's happening. Next, negative 2, and then x minus 5, negative 2, x minus 5 in parentheses, okay? We're going to carry this negative when we distribute. So negative 2 times x equals negative 2x. Well, what about negative 2 times negative 5? Well, a negative times a negative equals a positive, all right? And it becomes positive 10. And that's our simplified expression right there, okay? And then lastly, we have 4 2x plus 3. And this is just this, right? 4 times 2x plus 3. Or, I'm sorry, 4 times 2x and then 4 times 3. So let me show you what that looks like. It goes 4 times 2. And then remember, it's like times x plus 4 times 3. And I'll just bracket it for you guys so you could see what's exactly happening. Then you could just use PEMDAS, right? And then just multiply what's in the brackets. And then you get 8x, right? Plus 12. There you go. Now you know how to distribute, okay? Pro tip, the outside number hits every term inside the parentheses, and make sure you watch those signs. Those will trip you up. Okay, here is the challenge question. Simplify the following expression. Right there. Put it in the comments below. Make sure you're numbering them, okay? Next tip. Tip number 12. Solving linear equations. My gosh, I hate when they get up in the mic and in my like go over there. There's so much real estate for these gnats to be going and they just like to bother me. Tip number 12. Solving linear equations. Solve for m. m plus 5 equals 12. Ooh, okay. So all we have to do here, right, is isolate. We're just going to isolate the m. Okay, and how can we isolate the m? Well, we have to, in this case, we have to minus 5, okay? And whatever you do on one side, you must do on the other side, okay? In this case, minus 5, then minus 5, then we get m equals 12 minus 5 is 7. Okay, perfect. In this case, how can we isolate the m? Well, we could divide by 3, and then we must perform the same operation on the other side of the equal sign, and then divide by 3, cross those out, and I should cross those out there, but you don't have to. And then you get m equals 6, okay? All we're doing here is isolating m. Super simple. So now we get 2m plus 4 equals 14. 2m plus 4 equals 14. So first, what I'm going to do to isolate the m is I'm going to minus 4 from both sides. And we get 2m equals, what is 14 minus 4? It's 10. Then I'm going to divide by 2 on both sides. And then we get m equals 5. There you go. Whatever you do on one side, you must do on the other side. And our goal is to isolate the variable. In our case, the m. Okay, last question. 3m plus 2 equals 15. Okay? There are several ways to do this, okay? I already thought about one. I could distribute, right? I could distribute the 3 and do what we did last time. And I don't think that's the best way. I think the best way is, I will talk about that later, but let me see if this works, okay? 3m plus 6 equals 15. Then you can minus 6, 3m equals 9, divide by 3, m equals 3. So you can do it like that, okay? There's another way to do this, and it's just like this. You could do this. Since 3, right, is multiplied by what's in parentheses, you could divide everything by 3. You could do that. Then you go like this, divide by 3, then you're left with m plus 2 equals, what is 15 divided by 3? That is 5. And then you could minus 2, m equals 3. And we got 3 for both. So there's two ways to do this. You could distribute the coefficient, or you could just get rid of it from the get-go. Okay? That's it. All you have to do is isolate the variable and perform operations. And once you're performing those operations, make sure you perform them on both sides of the equal sign. Okay? Pro tip, solving means get x by itself. Use the opposite operation to isolate the x. That's it. And here is the challenge question. Solve for k. 4k minus 3 in parentheses plus 2k equals 18. And you will have to isolate that k. Oh my gosh, that looks like a monster. But I'm not solving it, you are. Put it in the comments below. Okay, tip number 13. FOIL. Multiplying binomials, okay? Remember, last time, or last few slides, we did 2x plus 5, right? And we just distributed, right? Well, now, with FOIL, we distribute twice, okay? Let me demonstrate. M plus 3, M plus 4. I'm sure you heard of FOIL like several times. It stands for first out, inner last, okay? I guess it makes sense, but this is what's happening, okay? You have m times m, okay? M times m equals m squared. Because if you do this, m times m is just m to the first power times m to the first power. And when you multiply exponents, you add the top exponents together. And that's how you get m squared, or m to the 2 power. And then we get this m and we multiply it now to the outer term. And we go m times 4 equals 4m. Okay? And then we get 3 times m. Okay? We're done with this m. Now we're on to this 3. 3 times m. 3 times m. That equals 3m. Okay? And then we get the 3 and multiply it by 4. 3 times 4 equaling 12. Now, are there like terms? Because we need to combine like terms, right? And there is 4m and 3m. And what does that equal? 4m plus 3m, that gives us 7m. So our finished expression becomes m squared plus 7m plus 12. Bada boom, bada bam. Okay, that's it. Now let's do the next equation, or not equation, expression. Next expression. I will mix them up, but honestly, who cares? Okay, just know how to solve the problem. So we have k minus 2 and k plus 5. Okay, what do we do first? I'm going to use this rainbow color. K times k. All right, that's k squared. Okay, k times 5. All right, it's a positive number. That's 5k. Okay, do you notice how I'm writing it down too? I like to put the number first and then the variable. Okay, you could switch them up. All right, all this is 5 times k, or k times 5. It doesn't matter. You could write it the other way too, but I like to write it like this. The textbooks write it like that. It looks cleaner. All right, negative 2 times k equals negative 2k. Okay, and then negative 2 times 5 equals negative 10. And what we're left with after we combine these like terms, we get k squared plus 3k minus 10. Boom, bam. Now you know how to FOIL and multiply binomials. Okay? Oh, I don't need to erase. There you go. So here is your challenge question. Simplify the following expression. There you go. Variable is n. Let me know what the simplified expression is in the comments below. Tip number 14, factoring basics. Factor the following expressions. Now, what we must do here is we need to ask, what could be divided out from both these terms, right? What can be pulled out? What is the greatest common factor? Well, in this case, a 6 could be pulled out because we get 6x plus 12, and then we just, I'm going to do it in parentheses just to show you what's going on. Well, I like to put also like this, or I'm sorry, there are 2 terms, right? And we can actually only work with one term, which is the numbers. We can't work with the x's. So I'm just going to put an underline over there. So this is what's happening, okay? Well, I could take out a 6, right? We both agreed that we could take out a 6. So I'm going to divide by 6, and then I'm going to move it down here. We get 6 divided by 6. 6 divided by 6, that is 1, okay? Carry down the x because nothing is happening to the x, and then get the 6 and put it right here outside the parentheses. And what is 12 divided by 6? That's 2. So our factored expression, right, is 6 parentheses 1 times x plus 2, or 6x plus 2. Need water. But that is our factored expression. There you go. Let's go work with the second expression. What can be taken out from here? What is the greatest common factor? And that's 5. Let's just rewrite it again. 10x minus 5. Okay, I'm going to put a parentheses, put my terms down. Okay, the 10, the x, the minus sign, the 5, and then only one term could be taken out. Nothing could go on, nothing could be done with the x. So I could just also put the x back over here. And we agree that it's 5 that can be taken out, right? Well, what is, and the 5 could be taken out, so I'm going to put the 5 there. 10 divided by 5 is 2. And 5 divided by 5 is 1. So our simplified, our factored expression now becomes 5, 2x minus 1. There you go. And let's work with this bad boy right here. 4x squared plus 8x. So now there are two terms that we could work with, the numbers and the exponents, or the variables, okay? And what we're going to do now is I'm going to put two placeholders for the number and the variable we're going to take out, and also what we already have. So we have the number variable plus the number and the variable, okay? So what I'm going to do next is I am going to figure out what can be taken out in regards to the number. And a 4 could be taken out. 4, right? 4 divided by 4 is 1. 8 divided by 4 is 2. All right? Perfect. What's next? The x's. Well, the x's, it always becomes the smallest power that gets taken out. So this is actually x to the first power. So we're going to take out an x. And an x, right, an x to the first power divided by x to the first power just looks like this. X minus 1. X to the power of 1 minus 1, and that equals 0. And x to the 0th power equals 1. So we write a 1 here. And then remember, we are multiplying these terms inside. Oh, that is a star. I don't know how a squiggly line turned into a star, but there you go. Plus 2 times 1. All right, now let's go ahead and remove the exponent from here. And this becomes x2 minus 1 equaling 1, and it's x to the first power. So it's just x. X to the first power is what I'm going to write, and we took out an x to the first power. So the completed expression becomes 4x and then x plus 2, because 1 times x to the first power is just x, and 2 times 1 is just 2. There you go. We factored that expression. Okay, the pro tip is ask yourself, what can I divide out of every term? Then pull it out. And we pulled it out here. Pull it out here. For exponents, take the smallest power, they share. And in this case, it was the x, the lowest one, okay? If you have like an x to the third and then plus x to this x squared, then you would divide by x squared. Oops. Okay, you're tracking? You're tracking, you know math. You know math now. Okay, here is your challenge question. Factor the following expression. And in this case, I've added several variables to trick you. But you have the foundation. You have a firm foundation. Tip number 15. Solve the following quadratic equations. Okay, this one. Okay, there's two techniques I'm going to teach you. So we have x squared plus 5x plus 6 equals 0. Okay? So for this, you look at this 6, right? You think, what two numbers multiplied equals 6, and then when those two numbers that are multiplied, when they are combined, they equal 5. Okay? That's what we're trying to find. And I wrote this in x squared plus 5x plus 6 equaling 0. And then this equaling 0 just means that this is an equation. We are solving for something. In this case, we are solving for x. And also to rewrite this or to let you know what's happening behind this equation, this actually equals a squared plus bx plus c. Okay? Equaling 0. This is what's happening. Okay? This is the base, the bare bones. So like, for example, a equals x or just 1, b equals 5, okay, and c equals 6. And I would actually write this as a 1, okay? When it's just x squared by itself, it's just a 1, okay? A equals 1, b equals 5, and c equals 6. This is very important for the last question, okay? But for what I'm teaching you right now at this moment, all you need to know is what two terms multiplied equals 6 and then combined together equals 5x. Okay? And in this case, right, what two numbers? I'm going to give you some time to think here. And one could think it could be 6 times 1, right? But it's not, because 6 combined with 1, 6 plus 1, that equals 7. And that does not equal 5x or 5 or b, okay? In this case, it is 3 times 2 equals 6. And then 3 plus 2 equals 5. Okay? Are we tracking? All right. Equaling b. So that's what's happening. That's the rule. Okay? Let's go ahead and check out the next problem. Actually, before we move on, okay, we have x squared plus 5x plus 6 equals 0, right? And then we've agreed that we have it's 3 and 2, right? Because 3 times 2 equals 6, and then 3 plus 2 equals 5. Well, to write this all out, okay, the factored terms would be x plus 3, and then x plus 2 equaling 0. And then you would just get each monomial or binomial. Is it binomial or monomial? I don't know. But you get each of these parentheses, and then you go x plus 3 equals 0, and then minus 3, x equals negative 3. In this case, with the x plus 2, x equals negative 2. So the solutions for this quadratic are x minus 3 and x minus 2. Okay, and if we plug that in, we will get the right answer, right? So let me go ahead and do this. So we said it's x equals negative 3 and x minus 2. So let's start with negative 3, right? Negative 3 times 2 plus 5, negative 3 plus 6 equals 0. Then we get 9 minus or plus minus 15 plus 6 equals 0, okay? And then we get 9 plus negative 15, which is negative 6, plus 6 equals 0. Cross that out. 0 equals 0. And yes, x minus 3 is a solution. So let's go ahead and test it with negative 2 this time, okay? Because this quadratic has two solutions. So we go negative 2, 2 plus 5, negative 2 plus 6 equals 0. We get 4 plus negative 10 plus 6 equals 0. 4 plus negative 10 is negative 6 plus 6 equals 0. Cross those out, 0 equals 0. So yes, there you go. And there you have it, okay? That's how you solve the quadratic. And I won't do the next ones. That took too long, okay? I want you to solve these ones, okay? I want you to find a number or two numbers when multiplied equals C, which is 10, and then when combined together equals 7x. And the same for this one, okay? And because I'm not doing those, I want to do this right here. Because in this case, x squared plus 4x plus 1, you can't use that method that I just told you. There it is right here. Got it. You can't use what I just told you, okay? This one we're going to need the quadratic equation, okay? Because 1 times 1 equals 1, and that's all we got, right? There's nothing else we could do. There's no other factors. There's no other terms we could use, okay? So the quadratic equation is needed. And remember what I told you, what the bare bones equation was? Right? Equals 0. I don't even know if you need the x there, but yeah. I'm just going to put it there. I don't know if you need that. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. Okay? So in this case, our a in this equation, our a equals 1, our b equals 4, and our c equals 1. And we need to use the quadratic equation to find the two solutions. So here is the quadratic equation. Memorize it because you will need it, okay? You need to remember this quadratic equation, okay? And we're just going to plug in the numbers, okay? Here are our numbers right here. We're going to plug it in here. So we go x equals negative 4 plus minus square root everything of 4 squared minus 4, 1, and then c is 1, okay? And then divide by 2, and then a is 1. So x equals negative 4 plus minus square root of everything, and then we get 4 times 4, or 4 to the power of 2 is 16, and then minus 4 is going to be hard because it's not a perfect square. Okay, divided by 2, and then we get x equals negative 4 plus minus, and then we get 12, okay, divided by 2. And again, this isn't a perfect square. So there's another thing I'm going to teach you. We have x equals negative 4. And then plus minus 12 divided by 2. Well, this right here, we could... I forgot what it's called, but we go x equals negative 4 plus minus, and then 4 times 3. It's splitting the square, I think. Splitting it, I'm not sure. Again, I forgot. But that's what we're doing, okay? This is kind of advanced now. And then we go x equals negative 4 plus minus, what is the square root of 4? It's going to be 2. Then we get 2, and we're left with square root of 3. Divide by 2, and then we go x equals negative 4 plus 2 divided by 3 over 2. Well, then this becomes negative 2. This becomes 1, and then we go x equals negative 2 plus square root of 3. Okay, that's one of the solutions. I don't know why I did that, because you're going to have to know what to do with this 12 because it's not a perfect square. And this is what you do right here. Okay, follow that. I'm not going to go any further and do the other solution. Okay, actually I am. I'm tired of erasing. Okay, that's all. That's all it is. We have x equals -4 and then -2 square root 3 and then 2. And then we go x equals and then just simplify. And this is -2. This has become a -1 now. So it's going to be -2 minus square root 3. And those are our two solutions. Okay. So again, let's go over the pro tips. For x squared plus bx plus c. Oh, it is bx. Nice. Find two numbers that multiply to c, right? Multiply to c. And when combined equals b. Use the quadratic formula if factoring doesn't work out cleanly. And you know what, guys? Just thinking about it, I have a whole video where I break down the quadratic formula. So this is just an overview of it, of just quadratics. Okay? And you got a little bit of harder maths. Okay? Splitting the square, I think that's what it's called. Someone please correct me. And here we go. This is your problem. This is your challenge problem. Okay? Solve using the quadratic formula. Okay? All right. Oops. Tip number 16. And I have been recording for a long time and my nose is starting to itch. Okay. What is the next number for each sequence? We have 38, 44, 32, 56, and 8. What is going on? Okay. At first glance, you know, I would first write it out. Okay. First write it out on your piece of paper when you are taking the test. And then you're going to be like, all right, what's happening here? 38 to 44? Well, we go plus 6. Okay. And then we go from 44 to 32. Okay. Minus 12. Okay. 32 to 56. Okay. This is kind of getting a little crazy, but this is plus 24. And then 56 to 8. Wow. That is a big difference from what happened here. But what we see is it's minus 48. And do we see what's happening? We see that it is just the opposite. It doubles, but then it's the opposite operation, right? Plus 6, well, then it doubles, right? And it becomes negative 12. And then it's plus 24 because 12 plus 12 is 24. And then it's just the opposite operation. 24 times 2 or 24 plus 24 is 48. Opposite operation. Now, what is 48, right? Plus 48, that equals 96. And the opposite operation is plus 96. And then plus 96 plus 8, right? That equals 104. 104 would be the next number in the sequence. All right. Perfect. Did my math check out? I think my math checks out. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, guys. Okay. Now we have another one. Again, we would write it out. 10, 5, 15, 12, 36, 33. Okay. So from 10 to 5, what is that? It's minus 5. 5 to 15, that's times 3. 15 to 12, that's minus 3. 12 to 36, that's times 3. 36 to 33, that is minus 3. And then we figure out like, well, there's just minus 5 here. What is this doing here? Well, we could actually ignore that. Okay, I kind of gave you a trick one. And the actual sequence is times 3, negative 3, times 3, negative 3. This right here, this beginning part was here to just throw you off. Okay? So it's just alternating operation. Multiplication, subtraction. Multiplication, subtraction. Our next will be multiplied by 3, and that's times 33. and then the next number will be 99 in the sequence. Okay? So these problems were fairly easy. Okay? And what I would do is just find the difference, find what's going on between both numbers, find what's going on in between the numbers in the numbers, okay? So like what's happening with times 3, -3, there could be something, but in this case, not. And then I would just, do my best to figure out the pattern. I do have a full video of number patterns and which ones may appear on the IBEW Aptitude Test with increased difficulty. I as well have 2 practice tests, which you could study, and those have number patterns in them. Again, this is just an overview. These are just some tips, some skills that you should know. I don't know why I wrote tip. These are skills, but I'm just going to run with it and keep calling them tips till the end. Okay, so pro tip, look at the change between numbers. The pattern may be in the differences, not the numbers themselves. If the first differences do not repeat, check the differences between the differences. Okay? And here is your challenge question. What is the next number in the sequence below? Comment it. Comment the answer below and make sure you are numbering them. I will check them and make sure they are correct. Okay. Tip 17 or skill 17. I just caught myself there. I've been saying tip this whole time and I wrote tip. And we're 1 hour and 40 minutes in this video. So, what are the slopes and y-intercepts of the functions below? We're just going to identify the slope and y-intercept. And given y equals mx plus b and our equations written in mx plus b form, we could figure out the slope and the intercept. So, the slope is just m equals slope. And then the y-intercept is just b. That's it. Super simple. Okay? And then in this function, 2 is our slope. And then also the y-intercept is 5 for this equation. Okay? Easy. Super easy. Now, let's go ahead to the next function. And then we have y equals 4 minus x. Now, one may think that 4 equals m, but you are incorrect because the m is attached to the 3. So this could also be rewritten as y equals minus 3x plus 4. Now we could identify the slope and y-intercept easily. So our slope is -3 equals m, and then 4 equals b. Easy. That's all I want you to know from this slide is that how to identify the slope and y-intercept given the function. Okay? So the pro tip, in y equals mx plus b, m equals slope, b equals y-intercept, and then also since there is no negative attached to it, this is a positive number, that means we have a positive slope. This is a negative slope because there is a negative attached to it. A positive slope looks like this. A negative slope looks like that. Tracking? Yes, you are. You are an expert. Let's go look at the challenge question. What is the slope and y-intercept of the function below? Is it negative or a positive slope? This one is a fraction, okay? I am. I want to go over rise over run. So our slope, right? Our slope we said right here is -3. And then this is actually -3 over 1. And then we're going down, so it's not rise over run, it's like down over run, but it really doesn't matter. You're just going right here with a -3, you're going down -3 or down 3. So like, for example, here's your graph. You're going down 3, 1, 2, 3, and then 1 over. Okay? That's all that is. Rise over run, or whatever the opposite of this for negatives. Okay? It'll make sense when you tell me what the y-intercept or the what the slope and y-intercept is for this. But actually, that was just a mini tip. Okay? That's all it was, a mini tip. Because for this slide, all you need to know is, or to identify what the slope and the y-intercept are. Okay? Yeah, it makes sense that, or it doesn't make sense that I called these tips. These are skills, math skills. I even introduced them as skills in the beginning. Tip number 18. Using tables to find the equation of a line. What is the equation of the line in y equals mx plus b given the table below? Okay, this time, we do not know what the line is, but given the equation to find the line and coordinates to plug into the equation, we could find the equation of the line. Okay? So this is how you do it. To find the slope, m, you need y2, this is the equation, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, and I'm actually going to write this to the side here. Or actually, it's right here. There it is. M equals y2. I don't feel like zooming in while I edit, so m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That is how to find the slope, okay? And given the coordinates here, we could find the slope. So let's just choose two coordinates, and a coordinate is just x and y. That's a coordinate. So I am going to choose 3, 11, and 2 and 8. And you cannot mix up the y2 and the y1 and x2 and x1. For example, if I choose this as my y2, okay, this cannot be like y1 over here, right? This has to be the y1. And then that means this has to be the x2 because I chose that as the y2. This cannot be an x1 and then an x2 over here. They must be the same. They must be uniform. Okay? So this is x2 and over here is x1. So let's go ahead and plug all our numbers in. M equals 8 minus what is right here. And then we have x2, which is 2, minus 3. Then we get what is 8 minus 11? That is negative 3. And then what is 2 minus 3? That is negative 1. Equals what is negative 3 divided by negative 1? What is a negative divided by a negative? That is a positive. So we get 3. So our m equals 3. Now I'm going to actually show you that it doesn't matter which coordinates you choose or what order you choose them. You just got to make sure the 2's and the 2's follow each other and the 1's and the 1's follow each other. Okay? Watch this. In orange, I'm going to make this y2 and I'm going to make this y1 and I'm going to make this x1 and I'm going to make this x2. So let me show you that it's going to equal 3. Okay? So I have in orange, I have 11 minus 8, right? Divide by, and then I get 3 minus 2 equals 3 over 1 equaling 3. And it equals 3 again. You just got to make sure that it's uniform, okay? If you choose this number as y1, the x coordinate must be x1, okay? You are tracking. You are good to go. Okay. We found the slope, which is 3. Okay. We found the slope, which is 3, and I'm going to write that down in orange over here. M equals 3. So we already have some of the equation. So we could write it down, right? We could write it down. Y equals 3 x plus b. And now we're missing b. But we have the other variables because we have the table here. So let's just choose the first one right here and plug in these numbers for y and x. So we get 5 equals 3, 1 plus b, and this equals 5 equals 3 plus b. We minus 3, we minus 3, and then we get 2 equals b. So then our equation now becomes y equals 3x plus 2. And there you have it. There's our equation. If you were to choose any of the coordinates, you will still get 2 or b equaling 2. Let's just test it out just to make sure. You should be able to, okay? You should be able to. And let's go ahead and test it out. Let's test it out in orange. So we get 11 equals 3 plus b, right? 11 equals 9 plus b, minus 9, b equals 2 again. And our equation becomes y equals 3x plus 2. Perfect. Now you know how to find the equation of a line given a table. Perfect. Okay, pro tip, find m from the table with the equation m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Then plug in 1 point or 1 coordinate to find b. All right, perfect. Here is your challenge question. What is the equation of the line in y equals mx plus b given the table below? Let me know in the comments below. All right, number 19. This is one of my favorite slides because I teach this on the fly all the time, okay? And now I am going to give you the knowledge. I'm going to transfer it over to you. Skill 19, inequality signs and positive negative values. Inequality signs you must understand. This equals greater than. This equals less than. This equals greater to or greater than or equal to. This is less than or equal to, okay? These little dashes at the bottom, okay? You must know these. Take a screenshot of this, all right? Put this on your wall next to your picture of Markyfbaby. I'm getting delirious now. I've been recording for almost 2 hours. And then after you memorize those inequality signs, you will be able to figure out all the word problems. Another thing that's on the pro tips, and I'm going to emphasize it, is this, okay? When you have something written like this, x greater than 0, okay? This actually equals positive, I'll put a plus, positive values, okay? Positive x values. When you have this less than 0, this means negative values, okay? X values that are x and that are negative, okay? So you must memorize these, okay? Very important for the tests. I go in depth on these on my practice tests as well as my videos specifically on these concepts, okay? So let's go ahead and answer these questions. What do the following inequalities mean? X, okay, so we're talking about values that are greater than 5, right? X values greater than 5. The next one is X values less than negative 2. The next one is X values that are greater than or equal to 0. So 0 and then on to infinity for all positive numbers, okay? And then you have x less than or equal to 10. So we have, right? We have 10, okay? We could choose 10 or anything below, all right? All the way to negative infinity. Perfect. I think you guys got it. Pro tip, x greater than 0 means positive values. X less than 0 means negative values. With negatives, farther left is smaller. And you know that from the other skills. Perfect. So here is your challenge question. Which value makes the inequality true for x less than -4? Or choose a value of x that is less than -4. Here we go. Last skill. I put tip. That upsets me. But I will not start this video over because I've been recording for 2 hours. Okay. Cutoff problems where the answer changes. Okay. So for this, we want to set the variable you care about equal to 0. That gives you the cutoff point. Then test values above and below that point. If the question asks when x is positive, then we care about when x changes from negative to positive. Okay? Now let me show you what that means. So given the equation below, which values of y is x positive? Which values of y is x positive? Okay? So we're looking for positive values of x, right? So let's go ahead and first find out the cutoff where x equals 0, okay? 0 equals 2y plus 10. And then we go minus 10, and then we get -10 equals 2y. Divide by 2, we get y equals -5. That is our cutoff, -5, okay? So let's go test values above and below this cutoff. So for this one, I'm going to choose above. I will choose 0. So y equals 0. So we get x equals 2, 0 plus 10. We get x equals 0 plus 10. And then we get x equals 10. And we get a positive number. So when y is, when we choose values greater than the cutoff, which is -5, right? We get positive values, okay? We get positive x values. So let's go ahead. Let me write this in orange over here because we need this. We need this to solve or to pick the right answer choice. Okay. Now let's choose a value less than -5, which again is our cutoff. Okay. So now let me choose a value that is less than -5, again, which is our cutoff. So I'm going to choose -6. We go x equals 2, -6 plus 10. Then we get x equals -12 plus 10. And then we get x equals -2. And that is a negative number. So I will write down what we've figured out. When we choose values less than -5, again, which is our cutoff, we get negative values of x. So what is the question asking? Which values of y is x positive? So it's asking positive, right? X is positive. And it's right here. It's the first answer. When the y values are greater than -5, x is positive, what we found out. So we choose it right here. But for the sake of the video, why are these wrong? Y values less than -5, we found that we got negative numbers, right? X less than 0. So that's why that's wrong. So let's go ahead and test C. And C says y values greater than 5. So let's go ahead and use, let's choose 6, right? X equals 2, 6 plus 10. And that equals x equals 22, or not 22. That equals 12 plus 10. And then we get x equals 22. Now this yields a positive x value. But the thing is here, this is incorrect because when we set, for example, our first equation, which was y is 0, we got 10, right? So x is still positive, right? But then when we chose y equaling 0, that's a value that is less than 5, right? And we still yielded a positive number. So that's why this is incorrect. And in this case, we are going to choose, or it's asking us to choose values that are less than 5, right? So let's go ahead and choose, for example, right? For example, let's go ahead and choose less than 5, which was 0, right? So again, let me just rewrite this to make it 0. We make this in blue. So we have x equals 2, 0 plus 10, right? X equals 0 plus 10, and then we have x equals 10. Well, that's a positive number, right? And that fulfills it a little bit. But not all numbers will yield a positive value, right? So let's go ahead and choose, let's say, negative 10, right? X equals 2 negative 10 plus 10, and that's going to give us negative 20 plus 10, and then we get negative 10, and that gives us a negative number, and that's not positive, okay? So that's why D is wrong, and the only one that fulfills this caveat, which values of y is x positive, and that is A, and I proved that in the first example. So there you have it. Let's go actually uncover the challenge question. And this is from one of the practice tests. Consider the following formula, and go ahead and copy that, screenshot it, and tell me what answer choice did you come up with. And let's read the pro tip. The open side points to the bigger value. X greater than 0 means positive, and x less than 0 means negative. Okay, let's move on now to the bonus tips. These are extra, and I do have videos going in depth on these things. Actually, I don't yet. I have for linear graphs, of course, but I will have videos on these. I do go in depth on this on one of my videos, and I will talk, or I will link that in the description below. But these ones, no, and I will make videos on this. But the thing is, rational functions, for example, that's touching onto Algebra 2, okay? This may be touching into Algebra 2, but I want you to be able to identify what a linear graph is, what a parabola is, okay? This is a positive parabola. A negative one just goes like this, okay? A sideways parabola where we have x equals y squared minus 4, okay? Then we put like a line in between. We see that a vertical line touches 2 points here, all right? So this is not a function, okay? That's all that means. But I will not go in depth on that, okay? And then these right here, or this right here, is a rational function, y equals 1 over x. And again, I will not go in depth on these right now, but I will link videos on it when they are created. Okay? So I just want you to identify these, because when you're taking the test too, more than likely, I believe, more than likely, these will be incorrect. And you have to choose between these two. And when I took the test, I was trained to even take this out, okay? Because we would only work with linear functions. But I could be wrong, you know? You might use parabolas and all that stuff in electrician work that I don't know about. And maybe you're an apprentice, or maybe you're an electrician looking at this stuff, and you're like, yeah, I definitely use that. Please let me know, okay? But all I want you to do from this graph, or from this skill, bonus skill, is to identify graphs, okay? Next skill, next bonus skill, okay? We've went over this. I've went over this on my previous slides, but let's go in depth on this. When you have M1 times m1, this actually means m, and then the exponents are adding at the top here. So then this fully equals m squared, okay? When you divide, the exponents are minusing or subtracting. So you have y 8 minus 5 equaling 3, and then it becomes y to the third power, okay? And then you get y to the third power minus y to the third power is just y 3 minus 3 equaling 0. And then when you have y to the 0 power, that equals 1. All right? Now you know this skill, okay? Multiply equals add exponents. Divide equals subtract exponents. Any non-zero number to the 0 power is 1. All right, you're going to need to know this when you're going to be performing advanced factorization, okay? And the last skill, or the bonus tips, test taking strategies, okay? And we're just going to go down the list really quick. So, answer every question, okay? The test will be tallied up on how many you get right, not how many you get wrong, okay? So, let's say that you only got like 30 seconds left and you didn't answer 10 questions. Just choose a letter. In my example, choose B. And then for those 10 questions, B. Okay? That's if you have minimal time, like not enough time. Okay? Or maybe, you ruled out B and you got A, C, and D. Definitely work on that problem and try to figure that out. Maybe choose D and then everything else B. But you get what I'm saying there, right? Make sure you answer every question. Let's go on to the next test taking strategy. Okay. You will be taking this test on a computer. So you will be able to put a placeholder and you will be able to skip and come back to that problem. Okay? If you spend way too much time on one problem, you won't be able to answer all of them. Okay? Maybe spend a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes max on one question. Okay? You could skip and come back to it. And remember, the test counts how many you get right. So do your best to get the ones you know. All right? Don't mess up on the ones you know. If you're good at algebra and plugging in the numbers to the equation and just, simplifying, do those real quick. You will be confident with those questions. And then come back to the hard ones. Don't get stumped on the hard ones, okay? Skip them. Next, okay? Plug in simple numbers. When you are, stupid gnat. When you are figuring out numbers or plugging in numbers for the cutoffs, when it says y greater than negative 10, and that's your cutoff, don't choose y equals 8. Choose the easiest number, which is y equals 0. Okay? Plug in simple numbers. Let's go on to the next one, and that is eliminate answer choices strategically. Okay? So for this one, and we're going to use figure 1 here, which is from practice test 1. Let's just quickly factor out, what could be let's just quickly factor what we could take out. Or, I'm sorry, let's go take out what we could take out. Oh my gosh, my words are not wording right now. You know what I mean, right? So for here, for the number terms, all right, we have 4 and we have 8. We could take out a 4, okay? And then for the x terms, we could take out an x squared. And in the y terms, we could take out a y, right? So this is what's on the outside. And I don't care really what's in the inside yet, okay? But then let's look at our answer choices. 4x squared y, 8x squared y, 4xy, 4x cubed y. Well, this is the only answer with 4x squared y. This must be the right answer. So go ahead and mark it and go on to the next question. There's no need to do the math because you are very confident in your math, okay? Because you have practice with your boy, all right? So let's go ahead and go on to the next testing strategy. Stop the FUD. Stop the fear, uncertainty, and doubt, okay? Stop saying, yo, I'm cooked, all right? Don't doubt your abilities. You got to put in your head. You got to put in your head that you could do this test, okay? Even if you didn't study for like a whole week and you got the test tomorrow, tell yourself you could do it. All right? You got to have confidence and you got to have that self-confidence to do this test. Okay? Stop telling yourself bad things. All right? Pray. Okay? Pray. Prayer always helps. Prayer is positive. Pray to Jesus. Pray to God. He will help you and guide you. Next. Subscribe to destroy the paywall. That is the last test taking strategy. So subscribe to your boy, Markyfbaby, for free material, okay? Because the mission is for free test prep. 0 paywall. My mission is to destroy the paywall, okay? So anyway, that concludes our 20 math skills for the IBEW Aptitude Test for both the algebra and functions and GAN-style math. Okay? If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, again, like it, subscribe, share with all your friends who are taking the test. Use this as a study guide. I have gotten many positive reviews over the material I've been putting out there for free on YouTube. So use them. People have been passing the test. Okay? You shouldn't have to pay for this material. Okay? You should be worried about the interview and about paying for all the supplies that you are going to need as an apprentice because you will become an apprentice. Okay. I have been recording for 2 hours. I'll see you later.